Hello Vols, and welcome to week 2 of our bathtub swim lesson and water safety series. This week we will be taking a deep dive into pool safety with the reasons behind the rules. And in this week's bathtub swim lesson, we will be building on last week's bubble blowing and breath control with facial submersion and eye clearing. If you missed last week's lesson, that's okay. It's still available on our Facebook page. Are you guys ready to get started? Let's go. Today's water safety topic is pool safety. More specifically, why lifeguards have to enforce some of the most annoying and fun-sucking rules. This is not a full list of all of the rules. It is a few of those rules explained with the reasons behind them. In order to explain this correctly, I feel it is important to give you a better understanding of a lifeguard's number one priority: patron surveillance and safety. The best way a lifeguard can achieve this is by preventing incidents before they happen, then acting quickly and correctly when prevention doesn't work. They only have one set of eyes for their entire section and sometimes the entire pool and pool deck. As you can imagine, it can be difficult. Rule number 1, no extended underwater breath holding. Why is holding your breath dangerous, you might ask? Well, when people do activities like breath holding games, hypoxic training, and free diving, they take successive deep breaths or hyperventilation in order to hold their breaths longer. This causes your lungs to not send the right signals to your brain when you need to breathe. This leads people to staying underwater too long and passing out, and in severe situations, even drowning. This is why kids playing breath-holding games like the dead man float and holding onto the ladders and holding their breath can trigger a lifeguard whistle. Lifeguards can't tell the difference between a child playing one of these breath-holding games and one that's actually in trouble. When in doubt, they have to go check it out. Ensure kids are moving and taking breaths at least once every 10 seconds. Because of this, you will also see a lot of pools that are very limiting on the groups that they allow to do service training. A lot of these trainings include underwater breath holding. That is why a lot of pools will only allow this type of training under highly trained supervision and won't allow individuals to practice on their own. Another group that is at a high risk for shallow water blackout is competitive swim groups. Coaches and lifeguards should be working together to ensure hypoxic challenges and drills are not happening. Hypoxic drills have been used in the past to get swimmers into shape faster. This technique has been debunked by better, more effective training methods that aren't as risky. A good rule of thumb is at least 1 breath per length. Prevention here is key. Please observe all signage and lifeguard instructions. Never hyperventilate. Never ignore the urge to breathe. Never swim alone. Never play breath-holding games. Don't do repetitive underwater laps. Always get 1 breath for every lap that you do. Rule number 2, no diving. Like the saying goes, feet first, first time. First and foremost, observe all signs and instructions for no diving. They are there for a reason. Diving boards and starting blocks are not play structures. If unsupervised by a coach or instructor, know the depth of the water you are getting into. Less than 10 feet in unclear water should only be entered feet first. Only attempt to dive in water that is clear and at least 10 to 12 feet deep. Lifeguards will whistle if they see anyone doing any dives that cause a person's head to go back towards the wall, like in an inward or reverse dive. This slide includes some more information from the Red Cross on head, neck, and spinal injuries, the possible consequence of a person diving where and how they shouldn't be. Finally, if a pool has an approved diving area or diving board, know that area's specific rules, like only 1 person at a time on the board, and where to quickly exit the pool so that the next person can go. Rule number 3, only use equipment for its intended purpose. Let's take a kickboard as an example. Its purpose is that of an instructional training tool. If the board is being used as a flotation device, the individual could lose hold of the board, which presents a drowning risk. A life jacket is a much better flotation device. If being stood on like a surfboard, this poses a safety risk for the surrounding patrons because it could fly up and cause a head injury. Also, when boards are being used as a toy, it lowers the life of the equipment, and it won't be able to be used by patrons who need to use it for its intended purpose. Rule number 4 is an all-encompassing rule about cleanliness. Why things like bathing, appropriate swimwear, not swimming sick, and swim diapers are so important. First, let's talk about bathing suits. You will see rules like street clothes are not allowed in the pool, and proper swimming attire must be worn by all swimmers, no cutoffs. A lot of people really don't understand this rule, but here are a few of the reasons why it exists. There is a true drowning risk. Street clothes hold a lot of water and get super heavy and can cause even a good swimmer to struggle to swim. There is a contamination risk. Non-swimsuit fibers can trap and transport contaminants that even the chlorine can't kill. Street clothes are hard on the pool filtration system and make water chemical balance hard to maintain. This is because those same fibers break down in the pool water. Proper swimming wear is water-wicking fabric that has a liner to trap contaminants. It is important to note that the appropriate swimwear can look different for different groups of people and for different activities. Next, let's talk about swim diapers. You will see rules like babies and toddlers that are not potty trained must wear a swim diaper and elastic pants and a bathing suit at all times. Again, why might you ask? Well, like with swimwear, a real diaper can pose a drowning risk. You will see right after this a video of a heavy waterlogged diaper to help put this into context. Also, like a swimsuit, and even more important for babies, is that they can help lower the contamination risk. A contaminated pool could be shut down for as few as 30 minutes or as long as a few days, ruining swimming for everyone. And finally, the cleanliness rule no one really follows or enforces, even though they should: showering before getting into the pool. And the rule we can't really ensure: no one swimming while sick. Examples of these rules are: shower your child and yourself. Take a cleansing shower before entering the pool and after using the toilet. Protect our water. Please do not use the pool if you have had diarrhea in the past 2 weeks or a disease that is communicable by water. Both of these rules are linked to the cleanliness of the pool in that they are to prevent outbreaks from contaminants like cryptosporidium, which is a very nasty parasite that the chlorine has a very hard time killing, and an even harder time killing in an outdoor pool that uses stabilizer to keep the chlorine from burning off by the sun. If you have been in a pool that had a crypto outbreak, you should wash your bathing suit, or you risk passing the parasite to any other pools you go to. COVID-19 was discussed last week, so I won't discuss it again here. Rule number 5, no water wings and inflatable rafts or toys. Water wings have been a swimming staple for decades, but for lifeguards, all they see is someone who needs a flotation device for safety from drowning, wearing something that they can take off, can pop, and isn't supportive of the chest or back. Water wings are dangerous as they give the wearer and parent a false sense of security while posing a true drowning risk. Instead, choose a Coast Guard approved puddle jumper or life jacket that is appropriate for the wearer's weight and ability level. Inflatable toys and rafts can be a lot of fun around the pool, but can be whistled out of the water by a lifeguard, leaving you frustrated that they have ruined all of your fun. Please keep in mind the 2 main reasons that this happens. Like with water wings, they can be popped and someone using the inflatable for support can get into trouble, posing a drowning risk. And most importantly, they can be obstructive to a lifeguard's view of the bottom of the pool. It is hard enough seeing through bodies in movement-distorted water. A raft in the wrong place can lead to a drowning because a lifeguard can't see. Use a Coast Guard approved life jacket or a mesh and foam raft for flotation. Please keep in mind a lifeguard could still ask you to remove the mesh and foam raft if their visibility is hindered. Rule number 6, no alcohol, or more fully, don't swim under the influence of drugs or alcohol. According to the CDC, among adolescents and adults, alcohol was involved in up to 70% of deaths associated with water recreation. It impairs judgment, impairs reactions, reduces coordination, causes dehydration, and even lowers the effectiveness of CPR. Impaired parents can't safely watch their children either. That is why having no alcohol on the pool deck should always be a rule. Rule number 7, the always shouted, no running, and other dangerous horseplay. When it comes to running on the pool deck, I think that most people understand that you can slip and fall. However, kids who are having fun with friends and family have a really hard time with it. Make sure that you are teaching your kids that it isn't just about their safety, but the safety of others, especially unsteady walkers like toddlers, those with diverse abilities, and the elderly. Also, if a lifeguard is constantly watching the deck because of repeat runners, they could miss someone struggling in the water. Similar to running is dangerous horseplay, like noodle fights, dunking, chicken, and pushing people into the pool. They all pose an injury risk. Injuries as simple as a scrape or as complex as a busted eardrum, and in extreme situations can cause a person to struggle and drown. So just be really careful how you choose to play in the pool. Rule number 8, no glass. Pool rule signs will include a no glass rule that sounds something like this. No glass or plastic that can shatter is allowed in the pool area. First and foremost, this is a safety risk because when glass breaks, it can cut people. Secondly, if the broken glass gets into the pool will have to be closed for an extended period of time for either extensive cleaning or the pool will have to be drained, cleaned, and then refilled, depending on how bad it is. And finally, the last of our pool rules, rule number 9, no playing on lane lines or safety ropes. When a lifeguard sees someone hanging on a lane line, they will whistle the person off. This is because we can't tell the difference from our vantage point between someone playing on a lane line or safety rope and someone in trouble holding on to that rope for support. If you are in trouble, don't let go and try and let the lifeguard know you need help. Playing on lane lines and safety ropes could also cause them to break. We will be finishing up this week's deep dive into pool safety with a reminder that pool safety takes a village and prevention is key. In this week's bathtub swim lesson, we will be going over facial submersion and eye clearing. I recommend you start this week with a review of bubble blowing and breath control so the skills can be done in a progressive process for the best results. As a reminder, these lessons can be done in a bathtub, bucket of water, baby pool, lake, and even an ocean. For this week's lesson, you will need some pennies, or other objects that sink, even rocks will work, for our penny plunge activity. Optional equipment for this week include a cup or a bucket for pouring water and goggles. Any skill done with goggles on should also be done without them. If a child falls into the water, they will not have goggles on and need to know how to do these skills without them. We again will be starting with Miss Polly, who is a 20-month-old parent-child age swimmer. For this age group, facial submersion probably won't be possible right away. If you continually practice bubbles and either an assisted or unassisted pour, you will see your child eventually progress to facial submersion with ease. During this attempt, Polly wanted to do an unassisted pour, but couldn't quite get the water over her head, so we had to help her. Her having control of the water helped with her fear, even when she was getting water into her eyes and nose. Next, you will see Polly doing an unassisted pour about 5 days later. You can already see she is more comfortable with water on her face. Eye clearing for this age should include a positive reminder to close their eyes tight, and then blink, 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 blink. You can hold their hands while they practice so that they don't use their hands to wipe their eyes. This will probably be uncomfortable at first. You will see Miles do a really good example of this in a little bit. With Polly, just saying the words and demonstrating is a good first step.
Squeeze them tight. Oh, good job. Squeeze them tight, 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 tight.
For Polly's penny plunge, it was okay that she was just playing in the water and picking up pennies. You can challenge your parent-child age child with bubble blowing as they pick up their pennies. Next, let me introduce you to Henley, who is a slightly older 2-year-old parent-child age swimmer. I wanted to use Henley as an example of an assisted pour with a more gentle waterfall type pour. Even getting your child to run under the shower would be a good first step. Henley in the same day progressed to even an unassisted pour. A few days later, Henley was blowing bubbles with her mouth and nose, working on getting her eyes in. They progress pretty quickly when they practice a little each day. This week, we again have Miles, who is a 3-year-old preschool age swimmer. First, you'll see Miles put his eyes in. He didn't really like it because he got water in his eyes and he had to use his hands to get it out. Next, we worked with Miles on his eye clearing. He does a perfect example of what that looks like. Again, your prompt should be, close your eyes tight, 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 and blink, 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 blink. He then puts together facial submersion and eye clearing.
Squeeze your eyes tight, 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 and blink, 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 blink. Oh, so good.
A few days later, Miles even progresses so far as to get objects off of the steps. If you notice, he is submerging his face, blowing his bubbles, controlling his breathing, and clearing his eyes without using his hands, putting it all together like a rock star. For Miles' penny plunge, he first just picked up the pennies. Then he did his penny plunge with his eyes in. We will wrap up today's lesson with Jane, our 6-year-old school-age swimmer. Jane was able to combine her facial submersion, bubbles, breath control, and eye clearing right from the very start. It's going to be fun keeping her challenged with activities like this. In one of these challenges, we progressed her to a front flow position with her legs supported and her face submerged. Jane is ready for bobbing to safety, which we will work on next week. For Jane's penny plunge, we challenged her to see how many pennies she could pick up with her face submerged in one breath. For this week's swim lesson safety tip, talk to your swimmers about how to jump into the pool safely. The saying goes, feet first, first time. Also make sure they are jumping straight out away from the wall.
Miles, how do you always jump in the pool? Feet first. 1, 2, 3, go. Good job, buddy. Wow, good girl.
Thank you for joining us this week. Tune in next Friday for how to bob to safety and exit the water.